No, they know
You know,
exactly where she is and where she's hiding.
I read on Reddit today that the Russians were planning to build a moon base.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Power to them.
doesn't seem like they could afford a moon base right now, since you know.
I barely understand. It seems like they're better at rockets than we are. Somebody sent me this really great military analysis, and because I had talked on the show maybe 3 weeks ago about how, well, I'm not shocked that Russian military has advanced. In my thought process, it kind of didn't. I pictured what it was in like the 80s or 90s, and I see their stuff now. I'm like, oh shit, that's all new looking bombs, and they've got cruise missiles flying along the bottom and stuff. And somehow I forgot that they were advancing, or at least I hadn't thought about how they're advancing. And he just laid out like all the places that Russia is better than the U.S. and where U.S. is better than Russia, and how different things are important. And like the U.S. has an air force that is just far and away better than what anyone else has, but Russia super strong in anti-air. Like they're not expecting to win air supremacy with planes. They expect to make air supremacy a serious pain in the ass with surface to air missiles. And they're better at that than we are. There's a reason that when we want to go to the moon, or I'm sorry, the International Space Station right now, we use Russian rockets. Apparently,
Whoa.
their rockets are first class, and ours, we have catching up to do there. It made sense. Everything he said made sense. I could find it.
That's not why. NASA doesn't have the money. They stopped the shuttle program.
I'm not saying. Well, I guess I did kind of say we can't build great
Our rockets are better than theirs. That's how we made it to the moon. We won the space race.
I
That's
would
what it was about, right?
I think we're clinging to some 40, 50-year-old accomplishment there. I would guess that you can't say our rockets are better because of what we did in the 60s, I think.
Well, they were better. Have they? I haven't seen any evidence that the Russians have surpassed us in any way.
I don't know. They routinely go to the space station. They're the planet's taxi drivers at this point.
That's because we defunded like NASA. We're just not doing it. Like it's not like we were, exploding left and right. We've had what, like 2 shuttle disasters ever or whatever. I think
I'm not sure, but
there's 2 of them that blew up, and then I think that was part of the Apollo program where they burn up on the. Yeah, that was.
I was about to say there's a 3rd one that blew up, and then I realized I was talking about an episode of West Wing. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
all right. So 3.
A lot of people are going to get out there.
I don't think that they've shown anything that would suggest they've surpassed us in like rocket technology. I just don't think so. I mean, we're not taking our shit into space because we don't want to pay for it. From what I understand, it wasn't like we were unable to get up there or anything. The way I remember it, so during the space race, there were two trains of thought, I guess. One of them was with the Russians. They had lots and lots of rockets on their whatever vehicle. And the Saturn V had, maybe it's 5. It's a much smaller amount of rockets, and they could never get their shit to be nearly as reliable as ours was with fewer rockets. Their Nazi scientists weren't as good as ours.
Dude, I want to read this to you. It's about a 90-second read. I don't know if that's too long.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
All right, here we go. You were wondering about tech levels and world militaries on PKA. I'll try and lay some info out there. Most of everything that the entire world uses right now was developed during the Cold War. In many cases, things that were being developed towards the end of the Cold War are superior to things we still use today, simply because there was no need for those programs anymore. For example, the US made way less F-22s than planned and was going to give up on a myriad of fancy toys for the Army, like low-sats and NLOS guns and net-fire missiles. Joint European fighter development programs stalled for decades and eventually broke up. The Russian weapons development took a gigantic hit that are only just emerging from today. For example, half of their competing tank design bureaus arguably were better than the ones in the Ukraine. Now, how we stack up today. The U.S. is really good at avionics technology. Radars on planes from stealth planes is really no contest. The U.S. is the only country with stealth fighters and stealth bombers. Soon, most of the U.S.'s major allies will be buying F-35s, the premier stealth fighter bomber. Very conventional media attention here, but I definitely support this program. I'm sorry, controversial media attention, but I support it. So this guy likes F-35s. I don't know. Another standout advantage the U.S. has is naval defense weapons for their ship. This developed due to the need to protect their very expensive aircraft carriers. The reason for this advantage is because the Soviet Union never needed carriers to project their power. They have land borders already provided for this. Instead, they developed huge fleets of strategic bombers launching anti-ship cruise missiles. These missiles can fly for hundreds of kilometers, break the sound barrier several times, skim close to the water's edge. As you can manage, it's a huge feat of detection and guidance to intercept this weapon. And out of this need, the U.S., the only people who seriously needed to, developed some of the best ship-borne to air weapons in the world. For example, and then he links to the RIM-132 ESSM. Those were really the only two major American technology advantages I can think of. There might be a few that I missed, but they're not strategically significant. An army could have or not have those and still win around 50% of the time. Oh, he's saying the other technologies could have or have not them and still win half the time. Everyone's tanks are Cold War era and similar in capability. Everyone's infantry rides around in a mix of wheeled and tracked transports with similar weapons and armor. Everyone has a hefty stock of cruise missiles, precision-guided bombs, and anti-tank missiles. Everyone has attack helicopters like an Apache. Everyone has fighter aircraft as good as an F-15. The frontline American favorite. Europe has some better, but not as good as an F-22 at most things. Russia and China will have something like an F-22 soon. Interestingly enough, Russia and her allies and Cold War friends have better surface-to-air missiles than the West. This was born out of not being confident and holding air superiority with their fighters. The U.S. would probably have caught up if it wanted to, but they're many years behind. He links to the Panzer S-1 that has no modern Western counterpart. It's almost done. The reason the U.S. military is so impressive is not only its standout technology, but its logistics. If you stuck a U.S. armored company against a Russian one, it would be about an even fight. You could even make arguments either way, but the differences are small. But if you made Russia and U.S. fight each other over an island in the middle of the Pacific, the U.S. could easily float several brigades worth of equipment over there with no real problem. It may have their own mini air force flying from boats. Russia might show up with a battalion or two of light infantry, no tanks, etc., and a dozen fighter jets. The only countries that can send large portions of their armies to fight anywhere in the world right now are Russia, followed by a large gap, then UK and France. Sorry for rambling, it's 2 a.m. Somewhere in there...
That was good.
Yeah, he seems to... I can hardly...
I wish he'd mentioned the submarines, because I feel like that's something that we're pretty far ahead in, too.
Maybe he'll write back. Let
us know what you think of the sub, because my thing is I feel like our the sub tech, not specifically like the capabilities of the sub, but the capabilities of those missiles that it shoots, those MIRVs or whatever, the ones that go up and have multiple warheads. It seems like the submarine will carry like a dozen or more of them, and then each one individually is like half a dozen nuclear weapons in its own right. I'm wondering if the Russians have a similar...
I think I took that surface-to-air missile thing and extrapolated it to mean rockets, but in reading it a second time, I don't think that was a fair thing to do, unless I read somewhere else. But now I'm reading it. Is it a gun? A gun? No, he was saying that in that thing I just read that the U.S. is much better at surface-to-air missiles, and that developed out of a need because they didn't think that their fighter jets could maintain air superiority. So I think I heard that, they're much better surface-to-air missiles. They got way better rockets, and that explains the moon thing and all that. Either I'm just wrong or I read that somewhere else. I don't know. I thought that was my source, and upon rereading it, it wasn't a good source.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Who did that guy say? What his background is, or if he's just a fan of the History Channel, or?
Yeah.
No, I read you almost all of it. I'm looking at his. Man, I don't know where his knowledge comes from, but it seemed pretty legit to me.
Yeah, he's well spoken. I'd like to know what.
Yeah, now, if you read this whole thing, there's no grammatical errors or anything. He writes on like a collegiate level.
I like to see that.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'll I don't know. I don't like grammatical errors. I do my best when I write something to get any out, and every now and then I'll send a message or an email, and I'll see it, and I'm just like, fuck, I have to immediately send them an email and let them know I know how to spell that word.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I know it was supposed to be Their. I know, and I've always fucking known.
Don't you doubt me.
Yeah. I don't at all struggle with the knowledge of it, but every so often I see that I made that mistake, and
when you're typing, it's, shit's just flowing, and especially if you're dictating or you're like taking memory. You're like, sometimes I'll read something and I'm like reprocessing what I'm reading and typing it out, like changing the format of it basically, and like there's gonna be some shit in there. There'll be typos, but I feel like I judge people based on that. Whenever I see Chiz made a little error in there, oh yeah.
You keep a mental log.
Little check
when
mark
I see
there.
Chiz make a little mistake like that, though, I liken it to the same ones I do. I don't think he doesn't know. I think he just,
of course
didn't
not.
spell, proofread it again or something like that.
No, I don't think he's a good speller.
No,
No, I
time
have a
he's a
spelling
guest.
contest.
I think
Next
they're the
time
same
he's
kind of
a
mistakes
guest,
I would
let's
make.
give him a spelling bee. Kyle versus Chiz spelling bee.
Ooh,
Yes!
I like that. And what's great now is everyone has cameras, right? Because
Yes.
we held spelling bees in the past. I remember White Boy Beat only used me Blade, which was an upset. But nobody knows. There weren't cameras at the time. Hands up for this spelling bee.
I'll take you on, Kyle. Any day of the week.
I don't want none of Murka and a spelling bee. Can I forfeit now? Like you have a huge everyday vocabulary, right? Like it's rare that you use words that I don't know, but it's not rare that you use words that I don't use. And I extrapolate that onto a
My favorite
spelling
word
level that I
is
want.
preponderance.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
Taylor word.
The P sound is funny. You put it in the right context. It's a good
And
one.
you managed to, it